Blog Talk Radio.
Choices, decisions, frustrations, and pain. Knowing I'm going to forget her someday. While I still can, I'll challenge all my loved ones, every friend, to look inside their hearts and understand that I will love them. I will love them while I still can.
Well, welcome everyone to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori LeBay, and I am thrilled to death to be with you this evening. Anyways, it's evening where I'm at. For my guest, it'll be early in the morning. At our core, just to let you know, because we get new audience all the time, who we are. And basically, Alzheimer Speaks is an advocacy-based company providing multiple platforms to shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort around the world. And at our core, we believe collaboratively we can win this battle against dementia. And I know we're making a difference from all of our supporters on our multiple platforms, thanks to ShareCare and Dr. Oz naming us as the #1 online influencer for Alzheimer's disease. And that has to do with all of us working together to spread the word and listen to all of the voices that are so critically important to us regarding Alzheimer's disease and dementia. We believe that, again, by joining forces and sharing our knowledge and just having these simple, everyday conversations about life with dementia, that we're going to be able to remove the stigmas that are attached to memory loss. And that, in turn, will help with the severe isolation that people feel. Together, we can help everybody understand the true needs of this disease, not just the myths, but really what's going on in everyday life so that we can develop products, services, and tools to help those in need. This year, we just launched Dementia-Friendly Businesses and Communities, and we are really excited about harnessing the education and awareness portion of that and helping companies build their brand and develop better service models for dealing with dementia, because dementia is out in the world. It just isn't always identified. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today as well. So together, we can give hope and get rid of this fear-monger that seems to push our societies at large, and again, teach people how to live with this disease, not as it. If you'd like to join the conversation, we would love to have you. If you signed in by Facebook, you'll be able to communicate via the chat box. Otherwise, you can always call in live to the show, and that number is 714-364-4757. Again, that's 714-364-4757. We've got two great guests today. Our first guest is over in Australia, and our second guest is from Saudi Arabia. And I'm over here in Minnesota in the U.S. So Kate Swaffer is our first guest, and she is an author, but she's also diagnosed with dementia. She actually got the diagnosis at the age of 49, and she's now 54, and she's happily married, and she has two sons, 23 and 22. Previously, she worked as a nurse, and she worked with the elderly and people in dementia care in operating theaters, also for 25 years. And then her career changed, and she became a chef, and she worked in her own hospitality business for 10 years, and then worked in healthcare sales. And so she's done quite a bit. And right now she completed her BA in Creative and Professional Communications, which is pretty exciting. She has her bachelor's in psychology, and she's still a university student trying to complete her BA with honors in dementia. So I just think it's absolutely fantastic. She now works as an advocate for the aging and dementia, and she's a speaker, and she's published this just beautiful, beautiful book. And so I want to welcome Kate to the show. How are you doing, Kate?
Oh, hi, Laurie. I'm really well, thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, I am thrilled to death to have you. It's always fun to hear everybody's story and how life is going and the power behind so many people with dementia and the things that they're doing. I know it amazes me, and it shouldn't after 30 years of living this journey with my mom, but there is just such a voice that needs to be heard, and you have just a beautiful one with your writing and all of the things that you do. So I'm just thrilled to death that you can join us today. Can you tell us a little bit what it was like living, I shouldn't say what it was like, what it is like living with the diagnosis of dementia?
Oh, that's an interesting question, Laurie. I think that how I'm living with it now compared to how I lived with it straight after diagnosis is very different. And I think like Richard Taylor, when he was first diagnosed, he wrote that he cried for some weeks non-stop. And I had that same experience. And at my age, it was a shock to think that I had a disease that even though I worked in dementia care, I really did think it was an old person's disease, and of course it's not. So the shock of that, the shock of the fact that it is a terminal illness, which I don't think I'd really acknowledged that when I was nursing because I nursed older people. The shock that, I one day might not recognise my family, my friends, and maybe not even myself in the mirror one day. That's all pretty shocking stuff to be confronted with. But I started, like Richard, I took a leaf out of his wonderful book and I started writing about it, initially just my own personal journey, and then I was invited to speak out about it, and from there it kind of snowballed, and I really believe it's imperative that we speak out so that others understand the human cost of dementia. And the only way that you can understand what it's like inside the world of a person with dementia is if I do invite you into my world and speak out about what it's like.
Well, it is, the things that I have learned from people with dementia has just been absolutely incredible. And the Dementia Chats webinar that we do, that's one of the comments we get all the time from people. They're just absolutely flabbergasted because people really don't know what your world is like. And granted, it's different for each person, but it's drastically different. And there's so many struggles that we don't understand are going on in your day-to-day life. Would you be able to?
Sorry, go on.
No, go ahead.
I think the public perception out there, and even within my own perception pre-diagnosis, was that mostly we imagine people in later stages of dementia. And so to have, probably in Australia, the most feared disease over the age of 65 is dementia. The most feared disease under the age of 65 is cancer, and I'm not sure if that's a worldwide figure. But for people younger who start having cognitive changes and memory loss, those types of things, we don't consider that it might be dementia, so we're not scared to get a diagnosis. In fact, we're desperate to find out what's going on. But most people don't consider that a diagnosis of dementia means that people can still stand up and speak out. I think younger people are diagnosed much earlier than older people with dementia. But most people see external symptoms of dementia. They think of it as a mental illness, which it's not. The word dementia is taken from Latin, originally meaning madness, so no wonder we struggle against the myth. And people with dementia are regularly defined by the symptoms of the disease: forgetful or confused, aggressive, odd behaviour, rather than the people that we still are, which is mothers, fathers, lovers, daughters, wives or husbands, for younger people, employees or employers. So mostly people think about our deficits rather than the people that we still are.
I think that's a really good comment that people do. They look at what's missing instead of all that is still there, because there is so much there. I mean, as the disease progresses, granted that changes, but that changes with all of us throughout life. But we do, I think, as a society, and I think worldwide, that's just a very, very common way for people to look at things, and it's just it's got to be devastating to be, you know, I would imagine you feel that you're being looked down on or not good enough at times, and that I can't even imagine what that does to one.
Yeah, it's an interesting phenomenon, because I'm still speaking out, and I've talked to other people with dementia who've experienced this same thing. Like Richard Taylor's one of them, Christine Bryden in Australia is another one, because we are still standing up and finding ways to accommodate the disabilities brought on by dementia. Some of us are then accused of not having dementia, of lying about our diagnosis, and then others say, well, you know, it's going to get you in the end, so I don't know why you're bothering to work so hard to overcome the symptoms. So it's a bizarre thing. If I'd had a brain injury through a car accident or a stroke and was doing rehabilitation, I'd be applauded if I was doing well with rehab. And I worked really, really hard to accommodate and try and overcome the symptoms of dementia. And rather than being applauded for that, I'm then accused of not having it. It's a really strange phenomenon.
Yeah, I have actually seen that occur where people have said, you know, oh, there's no way. There's no way. And, in fact, with Richard in particular, somebody said, well, there's no way he can get up there and he can speak like that, and he's so clear and concise, and the information he's sharing. And I said, but you don't understand. When he goes to the airport, you know, when he's traveling, and Richard had shared this with me, that he wears a badge. And in his little kind of conference badge is his itinerary. And when he gets off the flight, he looks at the big scope of the planes coming and going, and he said, Lori, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know if I'm coming or going. I'm just hoping the person who's supposed to meet me there finds me. Because it's just not clicking.
It's very true. You know, in the Inspector Lindley murder series book, Inspector Lindley talks about his mother being like a swan, and he suspected she had Alzheimer's. And Christine Bryden talks about that too. So, you know, having dementia in the earlier stages, we want to look like a swan, calm and serene on the surface, but our legs are paddling fast below the surface to make it look okay to others. It feels humiliating and demoralising to show our symptoms. And so we work really, really hard to paddle below the surface.
That's a really good way to describe it. I've never heard anybody describe it that way, but it makes a lot of sense, because you're trying so hard to fit in, and that there's conversations on some of the social media groups that I'm on right now about just how exhausting that is. You know,
it is, yeah.
It just, you know, not only emotionally, but physically. I mean, it just takes everything out of you on so many different levels, and I can only imagine how difficult that is to do, because we want to fit in and we want to make others feel comfortable. And that's one of the really amazing things, I think, with this disease is people don't know how hard people with dementia are trying to make them comfortable, and how hard they're working at that.
I think, you know, for me to, I spoke at a positive psychology conference last week, and, I had 20 or 25 minutes to talk, and I got up and I was well-dressed, and I have to use my notes, and I've got notes in front of me all over my desk here just to prompt me. But, of course, your listeners can't see that, and, the people at conference last week couldn't see that I needed prompting in the morning for showering, and sometimes I need prompting for getting dressed the right way. And they don't see that I leave, half an hour or an hour earlier, because usually now I forget to take things with me, so there's always a trip back home to pick things up. People don't see that I'm not driving because I still get places. I just have to rely on friends and family to transport me around because my driver's license was revoked in 2009. So they're all the little things you don't see. And to see someone or to listen to someone for a 20-minute period, or even now in this interview, to listen what's going on behind the scenes or the paddling below is for the most part invisible.
Mhm. Well, you're doing a wonderful job. I have to tell you that, and I again so appreciate you taking the time to be on the show with us. But there are some people that have wanted to be on the show and they say, I just can't use the phone, but they can still use the computer. Others say they can use the computer but not the phone. Or, every case is different, and we have to just be so conscious of that.
Yeah, it is different for everybody. For me to use the phone now, often it takes me 4 or 5 times to dial in the right number because I'm reading numbers back to front and upside down. So, I persist with that because it's a way of staying connected. The computer is good for me for writing because my handwriting now is quite impaired. And with technology the way that it is, it corrects most of my spelling errors. It does a lot of that for me without me having to think. And I'm lucky that I learnt touch typing as a teenager at school, and I haven't lost the sort of touch typing skill yet. So, that's fantastic. And IT really helps me. I'd be lost without it.
Yeah. Well, and, you have to use whatever modes work for you, and there shouldn't be any shame attached to that because it really has nothing to do with how something gets done. It's the engagement that's important.
Yeah.
And
I feel.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I feel blessed I was at university when I was diagnosed as a mature age student because one of my lecturers who could see I was having trouble referred me to the disability advisors, and instead of telling me to give up study, they helped me develop strategies to manage the ever-changing disabilities. And so I have a lot of assistance at university to get through my courses.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's wonderful to hear. That is absolutely fantastic. It's nice to see that kind of support is available to you. I wish there was more of that over here in the U.S., but the UK seems to be a little bit ahead of us in terms of being dementia friendly. But we're hoping to catch up. So we all.
I think
have
it's only university that's dementia friendly. Not much else in our society here is very dementia friendly. But there are some unique challenges for people with younger onset dementia. If we need to access residential aged care, then the accreditation standards are being broken if they accept people under 65 because their services, their decor, their food, their music, their activities are all geared to people over 65. In Australia, we have to have an aged care assessment to be able to access any services, even if it's in-home support. And under the age of 65, we don't qualify to have that assessment. And then there's the stigma and the isolation and the discrimination for people with dementia any age. So the stigma generally means that for those of us that, and I liken it to coming out for the gay community, I came out really quickly about having this diagnosis, and many of our friends and family have kind of disappeared. They just don't want to engage in our new world. So, that's a stigma, and that makes it more isolating for me and for other people. And then when you put in the factor that you can't drive, it's a very lonely existence. And then it's a terminal illness without credentials. Most people don't understand that it is a terminal illness. And if people with dementia need palliative care services, generally speaking, they're not offered to people with dementia in their later stages of life. Then for younger people, of course, I had teenage children when I was diagnosed and elderly parents. So those two groups of people and my husband have to become carers, and that's a huge burden for those members of my family. And there's a significant challenge that I see for particularly younger onset dementia people is that most of us are or were working when we were diagnosed, and most of us are told to give up work and, in my case, give up study and go home and live with the time you've got left. And I term this prescribed disengagement. And why is it that one day I was studying a double degree, working full-time and raising a family and volunteering, and then told to give up my life as I knew it and start living? If I'd given up paid employment, if I'd continued with assistance for my disabilities, I probably could have worked for a lot longer.
Mhm. Yeah, well, and I think, I think companies, too, have to get educated in terms of how do we deal with somebody who is diagnosed early on, and how can we shift those responsibilities as the disease progresses. Because a lot of them, are fine in certain jobs. Others, not so much. It just depends on the type of position that's there. But I think that companies really have to start looking at this seriously and taking it to heart. We had one gentleman who told us, he worked in a hospital system, and he had gone in apparently for a physical, was never told that he had dementia, and then he was pulled in to an evaluation, and across his file said dementia, and he was fired.
Oh,
and this was in a hospital system. And I can't even imagine, stress does weird things to all of us, but with somebody with dementia, it really gets complicated sometimes, and to think you have a job 1 minute and not the next, and then to not have been told.
Yeah, that is an example of blatant discrimination. If that man had lost his eyesight, his employers, at least in this country, would be obliged by law to help rehabilitate him and get him back into the workforce.
Mm-hmm.
And with any other disability, the same, but dementia seems to be considered differently. And I've been denied positions on boards of companies based on the fact that my memory loss might get in the way of my ability to function. And that is blatant discrimination.
Yep. And that really has to change. And I don't think it will change until people truly understand the disease. I think, like you said earlier, there's so many misconceptions wrapped around the disease, that it's an older person, and, they don't have any idea of all the different variables that you guys struggle with day in and day out, and how things can change, and how important routines can be in terms of being able to complete a task or not complete a task, and the emotional impact of everything, and how that can really set people in flight. If somebody is really upset or coming at you really attacking, what I have found, and maybe it's different for you, I think it's different with everybody, but a lot of times they can't understand where that anger is coming from or that frustration. And it might not even be directed at them, but they absorb it and get anxious. Have you ever found that happening to yourself at all?
I think that, we go through the stages of grief over and over again. So, yes, I feel anger sometimes at a new symptom that appears. It's a really complicated grieving process for people with dementia and our families, because unlike, maybe a flood or a death, it's a terrible, terrible grief that is follows after that, but you get over it and you get used to it. And it's not a new grief every day or every other day or every week. So, I just get used to managing maybe some of the memory loss symptoms and the strategies that I've started using to manage them, and then suddenly that changes. So I have to start all over again, or a new symptom pops up. And it takes you right back to almost day one of diagnosis. So it's like being at sea on a little boat, and some days it's calm and other days it's lots of undercurrents underneath, and other days it's a mighty storm with lots of tears and lots of thunder. So it's a strange experience.
Can I ask how your family adjusted? Even starting with your parents, that has to be just a strange phenomenon, because most people think, again, it's an older person's disease. So how can my child have this disease?
Yeah. Well, I think to start with, my parents were probably in shock about it. Dad, my father's still not that comfortable even talking about the D word. My mother was interviewed in 2009, and she said she was horrified and angry when she was told of my dementia, and she said it was an anger that she'd never felt before, one that she thought would never go away. Then the anger subsided, she said, and I was left with a deep, deep sadness. I cannot contemplate what lies ahead. And I'm reading that from something that where she was interviewed. So our relationships have changed. My children mostly act as if nothing is wrong, and they manage any obvious changes as best they can. Our way in my immediate family is to use humour. For example, when they were still living at home and I was first diagnosed, they would introduce me to their friends as the dementor in the family from the Harry Potter books. And some people would look a bit shocked at that, but we kind of thought that was funny. And in fact, if you've seen the Harry Potter movies, for me, the Dementors perfectly represent, in a visual way, how it feels inside, as if the dementia is sucking the life and goodness out of my soul. And I've used that analogy almost since being diagnosed, and I looked up what the Harry Potter site says of Dementors, and can I read that out?
Oh, please, please.
A Dementor is a dark creature, considered one of the foulest to inhabit the world. Dementors feed off human happiness and thus cause depression and despair to anyone near them. They can also consume a person's soul, leaving their victims in a permanent vegetative state, and thus are often referred to as soul-sucking fiends, and are known to leave a person as an empty shell. For me, that said it all.
Wow, is that powerful?
It's profound. You know, when I found that definition on the Harry Potter, I think it was the Wiki Potter site, it slapped me in the face, because that's exactly what it's like. For me, I find that my writing, my poetry and my blogging has helped to restore that empty shell, because my written words, they're not only a record of my life, but they're a window into my soul and a way of refilling that empty shell. You know, my husband, he lives with an ever-deepening sorrow as he watches from the sidelines. He tries to support me without minimising me, and I nicknamed him Bub about 12 months ago, and Bub stands for backup brain. He and I don't like it.
You do have a good sense of humour.
Yeah, we don't like the term carer, because he said, I've always cared for you. I cared for you before I married you. And we just feel that backup brain is a better way of thinking about him being by my side. So if you imagine a computer, you have maybe a hard disk or something that you back up your files onto, and I back up everything that I do now. So, and I keep all emails from everybody. I don't delete anything, because if I need to communicate with somebody, then often I need to go back to, you know, the various emails they've sent me. But like a backup on a computer, you don't use the backup all the time. You only need it when the main drive crashes. So he stands on the sidelines trying not to minimise me. But he tries to hide and block out his grief as we try and live the best way that we can. But there are days I can see the intense sadness in his eyes and feel it in his hug. Sometimes he sits and holds his head in his hands or stares at me when he thinks I'm not looking. We email each other a lot, because that way we've got a track of our conversations, for me. And in an email last year he wrote, I know I'm losing you, and I'm afraid of what the future holds. You know, that's deeply sad, but that's our life, and we have to live with that.
Well, and it's nice that you're able to communicate, even the pain, you know, because that's important in that sense of loss, because you're both, I would imagine, feeling it, and you know, that connection. I think that's one of the most difficult things with this disease, is there are so many levels of loss that you don't get with a lot of other diseases. And you don't know when it's coming, and you don't know how it's going to show up.
No.
And you really can't prepare for it, because it's just a constant. You know, with my mom, she's had memory loss for 30 years. And so, you know, I look at the disease actually as a gift, because through those losses, it's also allowed me to love at deeper levels and communicate on levels that I didn't know existed. And so her disease has really been a true gift to me and changed the way I look at all of life. And I think I look at life much better. I think I am more grateful and more appreciative. I think I'm much more accepting and less judgmental. And I was one that I didn't think I was real judgmental. But looking back, it was like, oh, yeah, I thought life should just boom, 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 you know, be like this. I'm much more spontaneous. I can go with the flow. I want to laugh more. I want to play more. Life is more valuable to me. I don't know if that might sound really weird, and I've never said that before, but that just kind of popped out. But life has more value to me since this disease.
I think that I can confidently say that we've had that experience. I'm not sure my husband sees it as a gift, but I actually feel like it has been a gift for me. It has made me value life more deeply. It's made me more loving and more expressive of my love. And, you know, sure, some of our friends have disappeared, but when you have other experiences in your life, like divorce or, you know, other crises, sometimes friends disappear then too. So it's not because they're bad people, it's just because they don't know how to cope with a diagnosis of younger onset dementia. But, you know, it's definitely given me a much deeper meaning to life.
Yeah, I know a lot of times people have a really hard time laughing in the face of illness, and with dementia, you know, they take it very seriously. And I was one of those too. You know, it was like, it's not funny. You know, and then I don't know what changed or when it changed with me. It was like, no, this is funny. We need to laugh. You know, and my mom would be right there laughing, and we weren't laughing at her, but if some of these things happened to anybody else in the family or any other friends, we would be split in the gut, you know.
Yes.
And so we got back to being normal, really. And because I think laughter is so important in relationships. I mean, it gives us that balance and that ability to move forward. Very important. How about your kids? You said they kind of do the best, you know, that they can with the disease. Did you tell your children right away?
We have a very, very open family, and we always have. In fact, my little family's a Brady bunch. My husband and I were both single parents, and our sons introduced us to each other when they were 5 and 4.5. So I'd actually known my oldest son since he was 3.5, and we've had a really open relationship with them from day one, and, you know, we sat them down and talked them through it, and my youngest son, you know, but that's a funny old person's disease, Mum, you can't have that. And that's kind of what people think. It's a funny old person's disease. Mm-hmm. But I think that mostly, they're 22 and 23 now, mostly they don't think about it. They don't live at home now and haven't for quite some time. So it's only if they're here, and we have family meals often, and it's only if a symptom kind of slaps them in the face, it brings them back to reality, and then they find it a little bit confronting. When our youngest came back from his 12 months of living in London gap year, of course he'd forgotten all about the symptoms of dementia, and he was living home initially. And after a couple of months, he had a bit of a dummy spit at me, and he said, "Oh, God, Mum, I've told you that over and over and over today." And then he looked at me and we both burst into tears, and he said, "Oh, Mum, I'm sorry, I forgot." You can't help that you're forgetting. Mm-hmm. And so for them it's easy to forget unless it slaps them in the face. Mm-hmm. And that's how young people live, of course. They're getting on with their lives, and that's how it should be.
Yep, exactly. Well, I think that's a great way that you approach that. I've had, you know, on my blog, I get so many people, and even on the show and through Dementia Chats, people asking, when do we tell our family and friends? You know, they really, no one talks about when do you tell them and how do you tell them. And it's, you know, it's a conversation people need to know. We didn't tell people with my mom, you know, 30 years ago. We kind of hid it, and we didn't even know we were hiding it. I mean, that didn't even hit me until I got mad that people weren't getting it. And then it hit me like, well, Lori, you've never told them.
Yeah, that's right. And for older people, there is such a stigma still about a diagnosis of dementia. I've got many elderly friends who I know have probably got Alzheimer's disease, but or a dementia, but they don't even want to talk about it. And I guess if they're managing to get through their lives, some of them have partners that support them. Really, over the age of 75, what does it matter whether you're diagnosed or not? Mm-hmm. I think if you're managing. But for younger people, we never expect that it's going to be dementia. We seek diagnosis.
Well, and it's the face is just changing so quickly out there. Where my mom is at the nursing home, I mean, I have been just shocked just in the last the people in their 50s and 40s with the disease. It's just been absolutely incredible, the difference in terms of age of people. Unbelievable. Yeah. Absolutely unbelievable. And there was somebody on social media the other day saying their son in their 20s was diagnosed with dementia. And, there's more research now with the head injuries and, alcohol-related, and there's so many different types of dementia that people really have to, kind of get a grip with all of this and understand it on a deeper level. How do you keep yourself so positive, Kate? I'm just enjoying talking to you so much. You are just filled with so many wonderful insights, and in your book, we definitely have to talk about your book because it's absolutely incredible, and it's a book I highly, highly recommend. Love, Life, and Loss: A Roller Coaster of Poetry. And you just really have a nice way with the pen in terms of capturing those moments and those feelings and pulling your audience right in, with you. Has writing helped you in terms of, I guess, keeping your sanity and feeling positive?
Yeah, I consider, I've been journaling more so in the tough times in my life for a long time, and I really believe that daily writing, even if it's in just a notebook, if people aren't computer literate, but daily writing and, for me, blogging is therapeutic, and it is absolutely one of my non-pharmacological and positive psychosocial interventions for dementia. So for me, just like a daily blood pressure tablet, which I do take, or for someone who's a diabetic, a jab of insulin, to me I see daily writing as a part of my therapeutic regime. And, ironically, the latest IT writing tools, that is the iPads, are often referred to as tablets. So I take my tablet for my high blood pressure, and then I write on my tablet as part of my therapy. I have a private journal where I write out all of the really tough stuff. And then I have a public blog that it's a more contrived and considered writing, and most of the daily blogging, most of that is about what it's like living with dementia. Sometimes it's about completely other things, different things, but I do find that it's therapeutic. Years ago, I went to a psychologist for some problems I was having, and he asked me to start writing a daily journal, even if it was just 2 minutes a day. And when I went back to him a fortnight later, he asked to see the journal, and I said, I haven't got around to it yet. And he said, well, I'll give you one more chance. At your third meeting, if you haven't started your journal, I'm not going to waste my time or your money seeing you. And that's how important this older psychologist thought that writing was. Expression could be done through painting, art, or poetry, or other creative methods, but I really think that it's a very important tool to help get out the hurt and the grief and the anger. so that you can actually live your life. Dementia might be a terminal illness, but why die now? Why not try and work on all of those negative symptoms using something like positive psychology so that you can still live a life that's worthwhile? And that's just my way of seeing it.
Well, and there's so much through your writing and through your advocacy that you are, it's a healing process, like you said, for yourself, but it helps the rest of us understand what this disease is like. And there are so many times when, through Dementia Chats or the radio show, people will call in and ask a question, and they'll say, I can't ask this to my loved one, but I need insight. And they're so thankful to be able to talk to somebody who really knows. And then they go back home and can adjust things. But they don't, they're worried about offending or upsetting somebody or getting into a fight. And so being an advocate and being a resource for us is, it's gold to the rest of us. It's just such a commodity. I'm so grateful for so many of your voices, and it's nice to see more and more people feeling more comfortable talking out loud about.
It's fantastic. Mm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Earlier last year, a online friend, Kay Bransford, and I started a blog called the Dementia Dialogue, and we haven't been doing it weekly, but she's a carer for elderly parents with dementia, and obviously I'm a person living with it, and we've been following each other's blogs, and then we decided to set this new blog up where she asks me a question that she wants to know about what it's like from the person with dementia's point of view, and then I answer her question, and then vice versa, I ask her a question. So it's a slowly evolving website that might be interesting for your listeners to have a look at as well. There's a link to it on my blog.
Okay. Yeah, that would be wonderful for people to check out, definitely. So can you talk about some of the different advocacy platforms that you do? You mentioned your blog.
I can. When I first started speaking out, a nursing home group had asked Alzheimer's Australia in my state if they knew of somebody with dementia who would come and talk to their caring and nursing staff. And I had an article that had been published in a magazine here called Dementia, My New World. So they asked me to speak out, and I was a bit nervous about doing it, so we read out my published article first, and then I elaborated a bit more on my personal story, and then asked questions. The audience then asked me questions, and that kind of snowballed. So then I started talking to at public forums about dementia and conferences, and I spoke last year at the Alzheimer's Disease International Conference in London, gave 3 presentations there, and I was keynote speaker for the Alzheimer's New Zealand Future Faces of Dementia conference last year. So speaking out, it brings with it some frustration, because there are those people that come up and actively accuse you of not having dementia, but then there are the hundreds of other people like yourself who appreciate what we're saying. And, Richard Taylor has really been my shining light, and whenever I feel like giving up, when it gets too hard or I feel too tired, I think of Richard and what he's going through now on top of his dementia, and I go, well, I have to keep speaking out while I've still got a voice inside me. 12 months ago, 18 months ago, I had this random idea to do a performance at the Adelaide Fringe Festival, and this time last year I put on 4 90-minute shows of my story called My Unseen Disappearing World, and I used the funds from that. 50% of the revenue went to a dementia research project, and the other half went to an organisation called The Big Issue for the Homeless that I'm involved in volunteering for. And that was a really interesting experience. I still don't know why I did it, but it felt right at the time. But it reached a much wider audience as far as, if you're trying to get public awareness and public education. A lot of my children's younger friends came to the last show, and some of those people then Facebook friended me, quite a lot of them, and started communicating with me saying, gosh, we had no idea what dementia was like. I'm going to be a better grandson to my nan. Or we had no idea what Charles or Matt was going through. We're going to try and be a better friend. And then there were some young kids who were nursing students who friended me on Facebook and said, you've inspired us to want to do nursing and aged care. So, there were some interesting outcomes from that show, and I felt like I ticked a lot of boxes as far as public advocacy and awareness, and I'm really glad that I did it, even though the load on me and on my family was actually, I hadn't thought about what a load it was going to be, but for my husband and children to sit there, they were my production company, to sit there every night and listen to not my story but our story in a public venue was incredibly difficult for them. But, it was a worthwhile thing to do, and I'm glad that I did it.
Wow.
My poetry book, that's not all about dementia, as you would have read, but writing about dementia is important, and speaking about it is important because there's so few people with dementia. It's a voice that's been missing in our society. A lot of organisations have this slogan, nothing about us without us. And I was attending dementia conferences and forums and workshops run by people telling me how I was and what was best for me without asking me. So surely it's the right time for people with dementia to stand up and speak out. And Richard, he's one of the first people in the world to have started that, and he deserves all the applause that he gets.
Yeah, he's just been incredible in terms of shifting the care culture and telling it like it is, and not, and he's not worried if somebody gets mad at him for speaking his piece.
No, he's not. No, I'm not anymore either.
And I think that is something that we need to hear. It looks like we might have a caller on the line. Would you mind taking a question?
No, not at all.
Okay, let me see here. We've got somebody from our 508 phone number.
In der Minorität bleiben, weil wir die wertvollsten Elemente des Kampfes und des Opfers sind.
I'll take that off, so I'm not sure who that was. Oh, well, we tried.
No, I'm not sure. I didn't understand that at all.
Me neither. Every once in a while we'll get a prank caller, and there's not a whole lot we can do about it. So maybe they had something on hold too. Who knows? And that's just what they listen to. Do you have a favorite poem at all that you would like to share with people from your book, or?
Yeah. I've got a poem that I wrote early on. I was doing a poetry course at university, and I wrote this in response to another lady's poem, an older lady who'd written a poem when she was diagnosed. And this really is what it's like. So the poem's called Stolen Dreams. Stolen dreams smashed against the solid brick wall, disappearing into nothingness, feeling cheated, angry, deeply sad, the 6 words that created my new world. What bad luck, you have dementia. This train is racing down a one-way lane. No chance to get off, no chance of anyone getting on. Never to return to the place I once knew. Tears escaping from swollen eyes down blotchy cheeks. The taste of salt, a permanent flavour. My soulmate, angry and crying, both feeling cheated. We were 2 sides of the same coin, knowing each other intimately and completely, best mates and passionately in love, aware of each other's thoughts before they were spoken, conscious of each other's inner world, our sadness or joy, our new world, collapsing into one of fear and trepidation. Somehow we must find the good in yet another crisis. Our love will get us through. It has before. But the effort will be gigantic. The world at the other end is too scary to think about. He said, I will hate it when I forget who he is. Then he said, with a sense of deep despair, please don't call me by your ex-husband's name. And at this we laughed out loud, even as the gravity of this new world hit us between the eyes like a piercing hot needle.
That's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. You really do have a nice way of drawing us a picture and being able to feel the pain and the joy and even that laughter and that, don't call me your ex-husband's name,
Well, it kind of was a funny moment.
Yep.
There are things that we do struggle with those things. We've had a lot of friends that we've got to know who are couples where one of them has dementia, and last year, in the last quarter of last year, say, 3 husbands with younger onset dementia died. So 3 of these couples that we know, and one had been given a similar prognosis to me, but he had outlived really his prognosis, and he did a lot of the non-pharmacological and positive interventions that I do, and then suddenly the tide changed and he went downhill rapidly and obviously died. And, that's what is always the monkey on our back. I'm doing quite well now, and in fact my last MRI showed very minimal change from the 12 months before, whereas the 12 months before had shown quite a significant deterioration. But is next week or tomorrow going to be the day that the train takes off? We don't know. So that is like living with a black monkey on your back. You don't know what's around that corner. And as a registered nurse very kindly took me aside after a presentation, and she said, look, I know you're working hard to fight the disease, but it will get you in the end. And I guess whenever we lose, a friend of ours loses someone with dementia, that thought comes back to mind. When is it going to be my turn? But I might get hit by a bus next week. So you can't afford to live with that fear all of the time. You have to live life, every day as if it's your last, just in case it is.
Yeah, definitely. You do. You have to put things in perspective, because you just don't know what exactly is going to happen. And I think, again, that's one of the gifts of this disease, is it allows you to let go of thinking that you're in control when you're really not. And, that's been huge. Now, it looks like we've got several other callers on the line, so let me see what we come up with this time here.
Sure.
Okay, we've got somebody from the Caribbean, it says. You're live and on the air. Did you have a question?
Nigger. Poo.
Apparently not. Apparently we are just having a bunch of kids that are trying to play tonight. So. Yeah, apparently. Haven't had that happen before, but that's too bad. So, oh well, not much we can do. Again, that's one of the things dementia teaches us, is to roll with the punches here and just move on. Well, it's just been such a pleasure and such an interesting conversation to have you join us here today. I really do very much appreciate you taking the time to be with us. There was one other question you had that I kind of wanted to talk with you about, if you still have a little bit of time, and that
Sure.
is non-pharmacological interventions and what your thoughts are in terms of that.
Well, I think that whoever's diagnosed with dementia, even if it's an Alzheimer's disease type where there is some medication to slow the disease down, there isn't anything there that's a cure, and I think that we're not in my lifetime are we going to see a cure for dementia. I've been alive for a long time now, and we still don't have a cure for cancer, and think of all the money and the research that's been done about that. With no pharmacological interventions available to me, I had no choice but to look at other interventions. And so, I read Norman Doidge's book about the brain that changes itself, and I've read a lot about neuroplasticity, and I tried some of those brainy apps and other what I call ridiculous things for stretching my brain cells, but for me I continued to study, and that to me was a really meaningful and engaging way to push my neuroplasticity. And I use phenomenology, which is a type of philosophy. It's just about writing about my experience, and I find that healing. So in the neuroplasticity brain training, I also do neuroplasticity with body work. So I go to a brain injury unit doing hydrotherapy a couple of times a week, and the exercises I do are back to front to everybody else, or in a peculiar way, so that it pushes my brain to work harder. The poetry that I've started writing the last 12 months, I'm writing the Japanese haikus because they push my brain to get a poem down to 5 syllables, 7 syllables, 5 syllables. And then I have looked at my nutrition and some supplements, and I use mind mapping to help me wade my way through everything now, and I use music therapy. So there are lots of things that I do. I've been told I'm lucky that my dementia is progressing slowly, but I don't see it as luck. I see it as hard work. So, I exercise 6 days a week. I've given up processed sugar completely. So a glass of wine versus no sugar and still being able to speak, to me that's not optional. And then I use positive psychology, so the positive psychosocial things that, Dr. Martin Seligman's PERMA principles, which stands for positive emotion, engagement, positive relationship, meaning and accomplishment. And that's really important for me. In the search for my own humanity, I found that reaching out to others through volunteering has been absolutely paramount to my own emotional health. The power of seeing somebody worse off than me is empowering and keeps my life in perspective. I've been to visit people who live under a bridge in cardboard boxes, and I live in a lovely home with a supportive husband. So how lucky am I?
Yep. And that's
interestingly
a wonderful way to look at it. And I think it's just fantastic that you've, all that you are accomplishing and continue to accomplish. And, you're not giving up on going to school, and you're marching ahead, and, you're utilizing these other tools. I think the non-pharmacological interventions are so critical, and I think we need to teach more people. You're just even letting them know that they're available and how to use them, like the simple thing of music or meditation.
Yeah. I do transcendental meditation, and I went to a psychologist to teach me self-hypnosis. So rather than use, I have some other health issues which result in chronic pain, and rather than use high-end drugs for pain relief, I use self-hypnosis, because the pharmacological drugs actually make the symptoms of dementia worse. Mm-hmm. There's a body of clinical evidence slowly growing to support the non-pharmacological and positive psychosocial interventions, and it's being done by respected medical doctors and neuroscientists and physiotherapists. What's been missing from research is how to help people with a diagnosis of dementia to achieve well-being or quality of life, and how to maintain this for as long as possible. So I think, as health professionals generally refuse to believe anecdotal evidence of patients who've healed themselves using alternative interventions, we need the evidence-based research to get them to support options that do work for some people and could work for many people if they were offered and supported as mainstream interventions. I find it fascinating that most people will believe in a God miracle, even non-Christians, but not a cure or delayed prognosis brought on by positive psychosocial or non-pharmacological interventions. I find that fascinating.
That is really interesting. I never thought of it in that light, but yeah, that really is very fascinating. And I think part of it has to do with the lack of education, and we don't talk about a lot of this stuff. It doesn't get the press that it needs to get, and we have been so, and we don't have lobbyists on all these other platforms either, like we do for the drug companies and
that's right.
Things. And people just think, well, it's easier with a pill,
Yeah, well, it is easier with a pill if it works, and there were no pill options for me, so Groucho Marx is one of all of the Marx brothers are, some of my comedy heroes, and he once said, I don't care to belong to a club that accepts people like me as members. And, I guess I feel that way about dementia, but I've got no choice. So the best way I can survive and live my life is to laugh as much as possible and to try and ignore the negatives. And, I try and remember that life's not a dress rehearsal, so I've got to live to the best of my ability now.
Definitely. I'm going to try one more caller, and we'll see, and then I'm going to have to get our second guest on, but we'll see. I've got somebody from a 508 number. We'll try one more time and see. You're live on the air. Did you have a question for Kate? Hello? Okay, apparently not, so that's okay. Not a problem. Kate, now for people to get a hold of you, it looks like the easiest way is just to go to your website, which is www.Kate, and that's K-A-T as in Tom, E as in Edward, S as in Sam, WAFFER.com, and they can go ahead and contact you from there. They can get information on your book. They can go to your blog. And, I really do encourage people to find this book and give it a read. Love, Life, Loss, A Roller Coaster of Poetry. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you so much, Laurie, and thank you for your show. It's wonderful.
Great. I look forward to talking to you in the future, okay?
Thanks, Laurie. Bye-bye now.
Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye. I'm going to go ahead and introduce our next guest here. And she is coming all the way from, Saudi Arabia. So we've got a wonderful show for you today. She has developed a new application that I think is going to be fascinating for people. And her name is Rawad Sheikh, and she is the founder of Touching Care. She found through her own personal experiences with Alzheimer's as a caregiver that caregivers experience and suffer from high levels of depression, which are derived from many, many factors and many feelings of loneliness and isolation and lack of emotion and social support, which can really lead to poor quality of life. And she just was inspired to take her wisdom and her knowledge. She is extremely talented, and I won't even get into all of her credentials, but she was picked out of 16,000 people to be in a special study at her school, and she's just a very talented, interesting woman that I'm so thrilled that she developed this application that uses the power of reminiscing and provides comprehensive information and tools and resources that are just so important, for that social and emotional support when you're caring for a loved one. So welcome to the show. I'm going to turn your mic on here. How are you doing today, Rawad?
Hi, Lori. It's a great pleasure to be with you. Thank you so much for hosting your amazing show.
Oh, well, I'm thrilled that you're able to join us. Can you, I want you to tell people, what exactly is Touching Care, and, how did it get started? If you can kind of take us from scratch on what motivated you to do this.
Basically, I started since 2010 working on the application. As I applied for, I got awarded with a huge fund of the Entrepreneurship Award from my university. And I was, because Alzheimer's disease, such a member of my family, my grandmother had Alzheimer's. So I was kind of indirect caregiver, where I was, seeing all the sufferings and all the daily challenges my family is going through caring for my grandmother. So that's why when I received the award, so my idea was to develop an application that aims to increase the quality of life of caregivers and their loved ones, and help them to maintain a good quality of life and to create also a dementia in the community through the use of non-pharmacological methods and Reminiscence, as well as the empowering caregivers with tools to help them have knowledge about the disease, create awareness, exchange experiences, as well as regulate activities of their Alzheimer's patients and their loved ones. Since 2010, I've been, as I told you, relentlessly working on the application. I named it Touching Care, and it's a mobile application that works on Apple devices. Hopefully, I will expand to Android and others in the near future, but currently it's in Apple devices, and aims to support the entire ecosystem, like the Alzheimer's patients, the caregivers, and physicians. And the way it does that it has a special network and comprehensive customized management and cognitive stimulation tool that helps to reduce caregivers' burden and stimulates Alzheimer's patients cognitively through the use of Reminiscence tools, the music, the video, the audio, the recording, which is proved scientifically that touches areas of the brain where memory and skills lie. So the main thing, Flora, I created this application is it's not going to cure Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's still it's uncurable disease, unfortunately, till now. But the main cause of this initiative and this application is I really believe strongly that the quality of life of caregivers and their loved ones of Alzheimer patients, they deserve to have a good quality of life, and they deserve to have a community and society that embrace them and love them and treat them with respect and honor them. And their life does not have to end, and to deteriorate following the diagnosis of the disease. They can still maintain a good quality of life and enjoy and celebrate every day, by being surrounded with love and support and having the really social and emotional support which you are doing, and Kate and a lot of people like you are doing. And I'm trying to do through my touch and care application as well, create this dementia-friendly community that we all need.
Okay. When it comes to, somebody wanting to get this, so they would go to the Apple Store then to download it? Is that how they would get that?
Basically, yes. Currently, the application Touch and Care is available in Apple Store. Yeah, they can go to Apple Store if they have accounts. It's available in both iPhone and iPad, and they can download it. And it's available now in 4 languages: English and Arabic and French and Spanish. Will be released in the coming 2 weeks.
Okay, and my phone is breaking up a little bit, so I apologize. So, if we can break down some of the different features of the phone. I don't know if it was breaking out for others as well, but if we can take them, kind of one by one slowly in terms of how would a family member utilize this app? Can they use it for communication between family members at all, or?
Yeah. It's basically the application is called Touch and Care application helps, as I told you, caregivers, the Alzheimer patients, and physicians. For example, caregivers, it helps them by providing them and empowering them with tools to help them regulate the activities of their patients, particularly in having a timetable or blueprint for medication, where care providers can organize activities and keep track of dates and times and of taking medications. Similarly, can track the nutrition, the blood tests, the changes in behavior, the sleeping pattern. Also, they can generate a user-friendly chart and graph and plot and track as well as record certain indicators that is important to capture by the caregivers with regard to the patient's health and overall condition. For example, the sleeping pattern, the weight, the temperature, the blood glucose, and so on. So it helps them also, not only that, but also helps caregivers to mutually communicate and to socially network with each other. Because I really believe that the value and the social and emotional support that caregivers receive by mutually interacting with each other is life-changing. Especially that I visited a lot of Alzheimer associations in U.S. and I visited Alzheimer association in U.S. and in Boston and New York chapter, and I went to visit the Alzheimer Disease International in London and met Mr. Mark Wordsman there. And I met a lot of caregivers in the Middle East and Lebanon and different parts of the world, and a lot of them, they really have a lot of challenges and problems, but mainly the main things they all complain about is the lack of social and emotional support and feeling isolated and depressed and lack of control in their life. So that is why, Touch and Care, I tried as much as I can to include features that help them to organize the daily activities for their loved ones to reduce their burden and help them also to keep the knowledge and support from other and exchange experiences by social media. This is for caregivers. For Alzheimer patients, it helps them, as I said, through the use of Reminiscence. There is the application includes photo albums where caregivers can carry pictures of their loved ones in a chronological order. It also includes videos, audios, and music. For example, I can organize all the music that my grandmother likes, the art, the video, the film, everything that would help to bring back her old memory, and remember all these wonderful memory and special relationship and special moments. And also, the new version of the application have games, just very simple games, marching games, and puzzles where it helps also especially early stage Alzheimer patients to stimulate their brain. So with regard to the physicians, it helps physicians, this touch care application helps physicians a lot in terms of making efficient use of their time, because there are a lot of physicians and geriatrics, and and during the last year GSA meeting in Boston, and a lot of them, they told me they spend a lot of time just asking the caregiver what the patient had, what did he eat, his daily schedule, activities, the medication, and so on. And it's time consumable. That's why having the touch care application where the caregiver can track everything in terms of activities, nutrition, medication, and they generate user-friendly graph and chart, and they can also send it to doctor. For instance, if you're a doctor in New York and you are in Boston, you can just send it by email, and he can see all these records and all these details, and the doctor can provide a better diagnosis, as well as better track the condition and the overall medical condition of the patient, which helps a lot in the disease.
So do they email a form then from this application to the doctor, or does the doctor just have access to it?
Yeah, with regard to doctors, the doctors can have I would really love to have doctors' contribution and experts like you, Lori, and people have knowledge about the disease to go. They can, for example, doctors, they are very busy, but they can go, for example, log in and post, an article, a new research, a tip of the day, start a discussion so other caregivers can, and early stage Alzheimer patients can interact, so we can create this atmosphere, of exchanging knowledge and information, and dementia keeps, friendly community. And caregivers can really help benefit a lot from doctors' comments and discussions. So doctors and experts in this field can really contribute a lot to the application by, posting useful comments, useful tips, daily tips, anything, they article they come across, they think that it will be useful to spread the word about it. It will be something great. It helps a lot for the caregivers and the patients, and doctors, as I told you, they will benefit also in terms of better tracking the entire medical condition of the patient, and enhancing the communication between them and the patient, especially that the caregiver doesn't bring the patient every week, and they see them maybe for 2 weeks or months. So this would be a helpful tool for them for all of them to much really collaborate.
Okay, wonderful. Do you have any future upcoming plans for additions with this, or any other type of app that you're considering?
Future plans in terms of what?
Do you have any future plans coming up for maybe developing another application or making any add-ons to this current one?
My aim is my aim is to create, as I told you, a dementia-friendly community, and I think I wanted to expand the application, do it in other platforms like Android and BlackBerry. Also to enhance the application by adding more features and functionalities, continuously respond to user requests and enhance it better. Also providing in other languages. Now it's available in 4 languages, but also in the future I want to add additional languages. I believe also I wanted also to the application has like a volunteer section where volunteers can have upload their data and they can communicate with the associations. There is like a lot of plans in terms of expanding the existing app, and there is always a room of improvements and adding in new features and functionalities. So that would benefit the caregivers, the physicians, and the Alzheimer patients.
Okay, wonderful. Was there anything else that you wanted to share with our audience at all regarding your application, or have we covered it all?
Thank you so much for your support and for your really providing me with the opportunity to really to have the chance and the opportunity to talk to people in the U.S., which is a country I really love. I'm planning to be in Boston, to attend the AAIC conference, which is going to take place in July. It's a conference organized by the Alzheimer Association. And I would like to invite people to caregivers and people who really associated with this disease, or not someone who's going through this, is to benefit from touching care and download it through Apple Store in order to help create this dementia-friendly community and help Alzheimer patients and caregivers to better communicate and enrich their lives.
Wonderful. And the best way for them to find out more information would be to go directly to your website. Would that be correct? The touchingcare.com?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and also visit the Facebook page. They can just write. I would like also to invite everyone to like my Facebook page and have more fans.
Okay.
They can just write Touching Care. They can write just Touching Care on Facebook, and they will find the Facebook fan page of Touching Care. And I would really welcome all the comments and all the feedback. Because this application is created for them and to improve the quality of life, and it brings me so much pleasure to see, caregivers and start using it and adopting it and benefit from it and providing me with the feedback of, further enhancement and modification, because this is really my aim. I wanted to, Alzheimer touched my life and really affected my family life, and I've seen it in my own eyes. That's why I really wanted to make, even at least if I can, a very small difference in this area, and this domain, and solving the problem. It would be my ultimate goal, really.
Wonderful. And I just went to your Facebook page and liked it. There's lots of good information, and it really talks about, the functionality of the calendar and the medication planner and how it can help organize the caregiver with schedules and so forth, So I think it's if you're on Facebook, just go to Touching Care, and you'll be able to find more information on this app, and go ahead and like her, and you can also click to go ahead and purchase that app as well. So great. Well, I appreciate you joining us and coordinating with all of our time zones here for this show. Very much, and keep up the great work. I've been really inspired by your work. We've been in touch for a while now, when you were first thinking about doing this application, and so it's very fun to see that it's come to fruition, and it's a live product out there that's going to change lives now. So congratulations to you and all the hard work that you've done.
Thank you so much, Lori. Not a problem. It's really, really great pleasure to be in your show, and really thank you for providing me with the opportunity to speak out in your amazing show that touches the life of every American there in the U.S. And I would really love to stay in touch with you, and thank you so much for your efforts and really increasing the quality of life of caregivers and supporting caregivers everywhere and their loved ones.
Great. Well, you have a wonderful day, and I know we'll be in touch in the future, okay?
Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, bye now. In wrapping up the show, I just want to invite you all to the Dementia Chats, which is the live webinar that we do on the second and fourth Tuesday of each month. That's at 3 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Central, noon Pacific Time. And this week we will be featuring Rick Phelps, Dina Dotson, and Steve Poneth. And what else can I tell you? Upcoming shows here. Let's see. We just had Dr. Bill Thomas on last week. Our next show is going to be on the 28th, and that'll be a great show. We actually are going to have Steve and Dina on that show, along with Sheila Van Houten, who is a spiritual counselor and leader, and she's going to be talking about some art therapy for dementia. And then Steve and Dina both have early onset. They're going to be talking from the heart what it's like to live with dementia. On March 5th, I can't believe that's going to be here already, we're going to have Sandy Halperin with us, and Sandy also has dementia, and he is one of the Alzheimer's Association he's on the National Advisory Council. So we've got several great shows lined up for you, and I hope you'll be able to join us. In the meantime, remember, it's about progress, not perfection. Have a great day. Bye now.
Hi, this is Suzanne Newman, host of the Answers for Elders podcast and radio show. We are the North Star that guides you through the complicated journey of senior care with trusted experts in money, law, living solutions, and more. So join us on this station, your favorite podcast channel, or just go to AnswersForElders.com. Meet the Wayshowers who will help your journey go a lot easier.